and welcome to Student and Family Engagement Strategies in the Virtual Environment. I'm one of your facilitators, Dina Schreiner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed school social worker in the Beaverton area. Today, you're going to be needing a pencil, some paper, a quiet space, and you'll be seeing me and my co-facilitator Campbell's pictures on some of these PowerPoint slides, but mostly you'll be hearing our voices when we ask you to engage. Please sit back and
Hi, my name is Campbell Stewart. I'm also a school social worker with the Beaverton School District here to facilitate alongside Dina today. So I'm going to get started just going through our agenda, sort of the why of why we're talking about family engagement. As Dina mentioned, we're both school social workers, and our work has led us to do a lot of family engagement work in our careers, both in the home setting, so doing home visits, and also in the community setting. And we're all sort of in this new era of trying to engage students and families in a virtual environment. And so we wanted to provide some sort of best practices for family engagement and student engagement, knowing that we can use these best practices in person-to-person contact, but also in the virtual environment, which of course creates some challenges that we're going to sort of talk through today. So our agenda for today is to talk about the foundations of family support, what engagement in the virtual setting looks like, considerations, safety, and best practices.
get centered. To ground the work we do in this session and get our minds thinking about family engagement in the virtual setting, let's take a moment to warm up. On a piece of paper, reflect and write one word or sound, or maybe doodle an art description that describes your comfort level with engaging with students or families in the virtual setting. After doing so, give yourself a visual with your thumb doing a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Have you ever done an engagement session over Zoom? Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs down, no. Family engagement virtually is a very powerful tool in growing a parent-child relationship. However, it can be a really scary task. Today, our goal is to create some comfort around performing a virtual meetup and create your own personal style for conducting student outreach or virtual sessions in your personal home. If you have any questions that are not answered in this session, again, please feel free to email the facilitators, myself or Campbell, and we can collaborate. Or reach out to your school social worker. They are a wealth of information. Our students' first educators are their parents and caregivers, and we as educators have the privilege of partnering with them to foster and continue this wonderful work. At the school level, there is a community of individuals wrapping around our students to help create a solid foundation for the educational experience for each family. Let's also remember that the definition of a family varies for every student, and honoring who they consider as family and their supports is a critical first step in student-family engagement. When I think of family engagement, I really like to pull from family support principles. Family support is an approach to strengthening families and communities so that they can foster an optimal development of children, youth, and adult family members. It is a type of grassroots community-based program designed to prevent family problems by strengthening parent-child relationships and providing whatever parents need in order to be good nurturers and providers. Check out the links in the resource page to learn more. With the start of school year being remote this year, typical opportunities to get to know families, such as back to school night, won't be happening. A virtual visit with families will be one of the ways to make connections with each student and family. As the year progresses, you will see families on Zoom during teaching time, but you may want or need to schedule additional sessions to continue fostering connection or perhaps problem solve with parents. Today, we're going to be using the terms session or visits, but what we're really highlighting is any form of communication as an opportunity to build resilience, engagement, and community.
Moving forward, we wanted to touch on building resilience. And we know that from research through the Family Support Network that home visiting or virtual visiting in the times that we're in now does help to promote and build resilience within families and students. So just to review a couple of those findings through the Family Support Network, we know that it promotes parental resilience. And as educators, we all want to enhance and further how we are engaging parents in their child's education. It recognizes the power of social connections and helps build on them. Offers concrete support in times of need, and I think we can all agree that that parents and caregivers and whoever are working with our students, they're navigating a new territory here. And so these virtual visits are a great opportunity for us to give them support. Also, knowledge of parenting and child development. For some of us, this may be a strength, but also an opportunity for you to loop in your school counselor, your school social worker, school psychologist, who may have a lot of really good information about how, when parents are asking questions around something maybe they're struggling with, whether we're talking about an elementary student behavior or if it's a lack of engagement for a secondary student. And again, this recognizes the social and emotional competence of children and our students, and is again another opportunity to partner with your student success coach, your counselor, and your school social worker.
Let's review some considerations before you set up your first virtual family engagement session. Identifying space in your home can be a challenge. Your professional life has collided with your personal life in the time of COVID and has been really challenging for some of us. And now you'll be inviting families into your personal space, just like they are inviting you into theirs. It can be a form of boundary setting and self-care to recognize this and identify a space in your home where you feel comfortable and that offers you a sense of privacy while offering families some confidentiality. When we say the word quote unquote safe in this presentation, we mean a space where you feel at ease, ready to focus, and emotionally supported. A space where you feel low stress but high satisfaction. You can add things to your space to include having natural light within view, adding plants or something living, pictures of your family where only you can see them that make you smile, that's out of frame of your video. Before you start your home visit or your virtual visit, take a mindful minute and set your intentions. Take some deep breaths and center yourself to be present. Be mindful of cultural considerations. If you're meeting with a family that you have some wonderings about, it is okay for you to call the multilingual department and check in with the community liaison before the visit. And be confident. Give yourself permission to mess up, get interrupted by your own loved ones, and ride the wave, no matter how big or small. It is also a really good consideration to have a conferring notebook for your family and child. This way you can take notes about strengths, notes for the next time you're having a conversation, or just general wonderings that you would like to refer to at the next time you conference. Coordinate with the teacher, school counselor, or school social worker, or school psychologist. In the time of COVID, it can be really overwhelming for families to receive multiple phone calls or multiple requests for Zoom meetings, and it would be much better to streamline it and encourage everyone to get on the same page. Now we're going to review the 7 strategies for conducting visits virtually. First off, we're going to want to make sure that we're discussing confidentiality in the virtual environment. Some families would like to know where this information is going and who's it being shared with, and if anyone can hear their conversation with you. You're next going to want to talk about technology. If you are using Zoom and a family is unfamiliar with it, take a brief tour. Highlight the chat feature. Some parents really enjoy being able to chat their question and feel more at ease to write it down than to ask the question verbally. Invite parents to create a confidential space, much like you have. Conduct visits in a confidential, comfortable, and professional space. Practicing makes perfect. One of the biggest tips coming out of all of the national parent family engagement organizations is to be confident in what you're doing. If you appear to be confident, then a family will feel more at ease. So practice makes perfect. You should also be able to prioritize self-care. This is a big ask. Self-care means a lot of things to a lot of people. I would encourage you to check out the video series on self-care to learn more about what it really means. but taking care of yourself will allow you to take care of others. And then finally, have a safety plan in place. When we say a safety plan, we would like to remind you that even though you're in a virtual environment, you are still a mandatory reporter. And if we suspect abuse, we need to report. We need to reduce the stress for us and allow us to know that we're not doing this work alone. And a safety plan is a great way to keep staff and families safe and let you know that there's a team of individuals to wrap around you and that you're not doing this in isolation. Have a peer teacher to check in with or a supervisor who you can talk to about your concerns. If you yourself leave a Zoom session feeling aggravated, activated, or emotionally charged up, have a safety plan in place for yourself. Take a walk, have a glass of water, have someone to check in with, have some good self-talk ready for when you're feeling.
We wanted to touch on working with interpreters, whether it's through our multilingual department or if you have a community liaison in your building. But they can be an incredible resource to help navigate some of the challenges in working with families in a virtual environment who have other language needs. So first of all, just start by requesting through the help desk for the specified language. And clearly stating sort of what you want to host the Zoom call for all participants and share with the facilitator. You can send the community liaison your questions prior to the Zoom call. And it's also important to consider that if you anticipate any confusion about something, or we really want to get clear on the roles, or why you're calling, or maybe you have some past experiences with a family that you think you'd like to do some troubleshooting with the multilingual department, they're a wonderful resource. So if you are sensing any just your own ambivalence or nervousness around engaging a family, please utilize them as a resource to help you navigate those calls.
To look at a virtual visit outline. We're going to always start with greeting the parent or student. We're going to always start with building rapport. Take an opportunity to review the agenda, set expectations, and if needed, review the technology that you are using. Then you're going to roll into talking about strengths. Share your observations, wins, funny, highlight the best part of the student or even the parent. During the time of stress and during the time of COVID, where everything is feeling overwhelming, it can feel really good to share the little list of strengths to empower change. Next, the areas for consideration and goals, objectives, and activities can kind of be put together. If you have things to review like observations or concerns, this would be an opportunity to talk about it. You can also ask the parent or the student what their perception of the barriers are and let them lead the discussion into possible solutions. For goals, objectives, or activities, this is a really good opportunity to build more rapport. You can bring in activity like a social emotional activity, share a video, share a laugh or a joke, and offer encouragement. And you're going to end by allotting enough time for families and students to ask questions, clarification, or even review something that they've already done on Seesaw or Canvas. When you end with some gratitude or something funny, it is again another wonderful way to build rapport and set expectations for what a virtual visit might look like. You can also talk about what communication expectations are expected between virtual visits. This can be, I'm available from 8 to 4 for phone calls or emails, but I won't respond outside of the 4 p.m. timeline. By setting expectations, it clearly states what you're willing and able to do and also takes the pressure off of you of feeling as if you have the expectation of always being on. You can also ask the parents what their communication expectations are. Just like we are, a lot of our parents are working and they may not be available 9 to 4. So come up with a solution for times where communication might not line up. For example, using email, maybe using WhatsApp or Google Hangouts. One final consideration is what to do after a home visit. You're going to want to reach out for your support people to talk about concerns and connect with family resources. Take some time to self-reflect. Who's your phone a friend at your school? Who's a peer that you trust or an administrator that you enjoy talking to? Take the opportunity to express concerns, wins, debrief, and just come up with some general ideas for next time. Also, be mindful of something called transference and countertransference. For example, if I'm struggling with my own child's education at home as an educator, I'm probably going to hold my students to a much higher standard and become frustrated when they don't meet those expectations. Learn how to lean on your own resources to limit this stressor. It is absolutely normal to be fearful of making mistakes or saying something wrong or dumb or silly or even offensive. And these are all valid concerns. However, if you enter a space with a belief that you are not an expert, but rather a partner, then that everything is repairable, then it can feel less scary and less overwhelming. I was listening to a podcast today by Brene Brown, and she says, it's not your job to be right, but it's your job to try to do right. These mistakes will happen. I like to call these mishaps stepping in ick. It is the moment when you have said something that was well intended, but very ill received. We all do it. We are human. This is a moment to offer yourself grace and a moment to be human and connect. Conjure up your inner Brene Brown and embrace your vulnerability. If you notice in the moment in a virtual setting that you have said something that did not land well, stop, call it out, and apologize, and try again. If you reflect and it hits you later after the visit that you've kind of stepped in your ick, at your next visit, call it out and apologize and ask how you can help. Repair in a relationship is one of the most overlooked, underrated, most powerful visiting family engagement tool we all have.
Student and family engagement is a wonderful way to get to know a family and wrap around them in a new way. So virtual visits, although it may be something that feels uncomfortable, it really is a sort of a new tool that we have to offer support to students and families. However, we all need to wrestle with our own unconscious bias. So when you're thinking about that, a good way to reflect and explore your own bias after a visit would be to reflect on what elements came up for you during the virtual setting. If we're reflective after our virtual visit, then we can catch some of these biases and acknowledge that you're human and you have these biases. We begin to identify what they are, enter new waters, and challenge our biases and commit to change. So for example, I can think of some times when educators or school personnel have noted that a home seems chaotic. And so that may be our own bias coming in, and that maybe our home is very quiet and peaceful, but maybe for a family where we view it as chaotic is their norm and they're quite comfortable with. Another example might be looking at the home, the condition of the home, making observations about if it's clean or if it's not clean or if it's cluttered or not. And so again, just checking in on those biases and how is that impacting our work with the student and the family. And I think the best way to do that is just to notice it. And if you feel like it is really interacting or impacting your work with the student or a family or creating concern or worry, that's when consultation with somebody else, whether it's a trusted colleague, an administrator, your school counselor, school social worker, anybody like that, to just check in on your own biases and see if there's something, something more there that maybe could be looked into. So now that we've talked about quite a few different strategies, what the virtual visit might look like, addressing your own bias when interacting with students and families, we wanted to offer some additional resources that might help deepen your skill level and understanding level in this work. This is not an exhaustive list, and we will be adding to it, but there are some things in here like around educator wellness and self-care, restorative practices, as well as some community resources. We know that when we go into people's homes, that creates a vulnerability in the families and students that we're serving, even in a virtual setting. And it may bring up some things for you that require additional supports, whether that's they may be in need of crisis line support or mental health support through the Hawthorne Walk-In Center. And again, we would encourage you to partner with school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists on those needs. But wanted you all to have these resources, as well as just some additional trainings and things that you can take advantage of if you're wanting to learn more.
In addition to the resource sheet that Campbell just shared, here's some websites that you can check out in your spare time. A lot of them review family engagement strategies. Please note that some of them might not be appropriate for secondary students, but may still apply to the families. There's also a table talk questions resource on here if you're getting stuck with how to build rapport, and some easy, low-risk questions that you can ask when you're meeting with a parent or a student. Finally, here's the child abuse hotline number. Also, please remember to follow the BSD protocol when making a report of child abuse or neglect.
Well, thank you for your time today, and we want to offer ourselves as a resource, myself and Dina, if you have additional questions or wonderings about family engagement in a virtual environment. We know that this is a new territory for many of us, so feel free to use this as a resource. Also, just as we talked about in terms of offering grace to yourself and to the families and students we're serving for the fumbles that we'll make in these environments, we hope that you will offer the same grace to us as we sort of fumble through training in a virtual environment, when we would much rather be in person with all of you. So thank you. And again, feel free to reach out to us or to your school social worker if you're looking for more strategies on engaging with your students and families. Take care.